Hello guys, sorry for the late tutorial for the tree creation in ZBrush. I have this ZTree plugin I showed you earlier. You just need to go to Google and search for ZTree ZBrush, and then the first one should be the one. Drag the slider to the middle, and maybe right in the middle, and you will be able to find the download latest version. Click here to download it, and then after downloading, it's a zip file, just unzip it. Okay, now you can go grab those two files, okay, and then go to the C drive, program files, and then the Pixelogic and ZBrush, and then the startup and the plugs, and paste it here, and also go the plug 64 and paste it here too. Okay, when they're done, if you open ZBrush, you should be able to find the ZTree plugin underneath Z plugins. Okay, now let's drag the plugins to the two palette. The plugins to the two palettes, so we can or to the docking on the right, so we can always see it. Now to start with, we can press this start button to create a simple trunk. Okay, I can of course give it some variations. If you don't like a really long main trunk, you can just grab one of the Z spheres by using move tool, and then there is a trim to trim it. Okay, if that's what you want. If you want it to be thicker, you can do something like underneath deformation, you can inflate it to make it thicker if you wanted to. Okay. Alright, now let's grab the last one here, and you can do grow angle, which is this one, to grow a smaller trunk there. Now let me make it bigger by using the scale. Oh, scale that one. Okay. I'll give it some nice variation. Okay, so that's one of the branches. Let me go start maybe here, and then create another angle, and this time I want it to be more variable, more twisted. So you can go change the variation to something higher than the default value, and then grow angle again. Oh, I need to select a Z sphere first using move tool, and then grow angle. I will have a new one, but this new one will have more twisting happening. When you see transparency between these spheres like that, that's just because they're too close together, and it's hard to figure out what's happening. So either move one or move the other one. Okay, so let me just make them spread out. Okay, I kind of want to have a tree that is tilting one way, which looks nice. But you can do any shape you want. It would be really good if you can find a tree shape you really want it to do, rather than just go blindly. Some of the operations, in case you forget those, to rotate, just use rotate, and then drag the connections between these spheres. Okay, you don't want to drag the Z sphere, that's gonna twist the Z sphere, and that's going to give you weird geometry later on, so don't twist it too much. Okay, and to move, if you move individual these spheres, you can click and drag on this sphere, but if you want to move the entire chain, you can hold it down Alt and drag the connection between these spheres. That's how you move the entire Z sphere chain. Okay, so I think that's about it. And other things like scale and rotation, you can experiment with it. Just remember that dragging the Z sphere and dragging the connection giving you different options or operations. So it's not really that hard to figure out what they're doing. Okay. Alright, so I have two trunks now, two branches now. Okay. And then I also want to have some roots. Let me make it bigger actually by scaling this. Just want to scale that and the roots. So I also want to have some roots. So what I can do is using the draw tool and draw a little sphere here for one of the root, and then select that sphere and not start. If you press start by accident, it's okay, because it's actually just creating a new 2. So you can always switch back to the old 2. Okay, let's grow angle from there. All right, now I have a little root here. It would be better to have some kind of thing to grow on. So I'm gonna go to the subtools and then apply or append a new, maybe a cube as the ground, and I can move the cube to wherever I want it to be. I can even go on, do some sculpting on the cube, like dynamesh it, and then do some sculpting on it. If I really have a rock, that would be nice, right? So let me just give it some nice shape on it, and to, you know, create something like a rock. Let me change the material to the basic material. Let's give it some hard edges. Okay. I have a tutorial for rock sculpting if you want to take a look. But for now, all I need is something simple as it's okay. Now, if you want it to be more rocky, you can go clay polish and then clay polish it. That will give it sharper edges. If you really want really sharp edges, you can drag the sharp to all the way up to 100. That will make them super crisp, sharp. Okay, so that looks like a rock now. And then you can go back to the ZTree or the Z-spheres and now start giving them more stuff. Like I think I can drag the root to make it wrapping around the rock. Okay. And then let me go drag a new root and then go grow angle again. Oh. To have another root. Okay. Now let me give it a nice arced root shape here. Okay. And then maybe one more root to, let's see, from here. I can grow angle again to have a new root from there and make it wrap around the rock. Now, I think the tricky part is how do you create a very nice distribution of, you know, branches and rocks and and figure out a proper shape for them to look nice. So I think it's more like artistically you have to be really controlling everything to make it look good. And it's not an easy job in this manner, but as long as you have that, the technical part is actually not that complicated. Okay, so I have some roots now. I have the branches. Now I really need to have some smaller branches, but doing that one by one is really tedious work. So what we're gonna do is using the grow branches, and that will grow multiple branches. So let's try that. If I press that, you see it's start growing branches. Right now it's growing on that root, which is not what I want. Let me drag it back. So I want it to be starting from here on this branch. What I can do is go select one of these spheres, okay, here using move tool, and then click the branch start here. That will force the branch to start growing from there. So let's do grow branches again. Okay, now you will see the new branches will go growing from there. Okay. Now when it grows those new branches, sometimes you have those overlapping. That's just because they're too close. You need to tweak their position a little bit. Okay. Okay. Maybe I need to do that a little bit. And of course, if you don't like some of the branches, like I don't like to have that one actually, I can select the first segment up there and then trim it. And I can delete that one too by holding down Alt and click on it while I'm in draw mode. Okay, if you're in draw mode, Alt and click, that's how you delete these spheres. Okay. So I have some branches now. Okay, now ZTree remembers where you grow from, and it will continue from there if you press grow angle again. So that means if I do more grow angle, it could be probably growing on the other branches now. So let's try that. Grow branches. Okay, now it will be growing there, and maybe some on the root. Okay. Now sometimes it's growing like too much, so I think this is okay for now in my situation. So I do like the smaller branches it gives me. I just need to tweak it a little bit to avoid overlapping. I don't really need that one, so trim it. Okay, I don't like that one either. Don't like yeah, that seems good. Okay, make this one longer. Cool. Now sometimes it grows too much and it's hard to control and gets messy. Let's trim this one. Don't like that one. So what you can do is actually make it grow lesser. The amount it will grow will be determined here, branch and numbers. You can change that to 3, so that will only grow 3 branches. And then the length of the branch can be controlled by the segment number. You can make that smaller, like 5. Then you will end up with shorter branches. So let's try grow branch again. Now you see I'm growing lesser branches, and they are not that long either. To have some overlapping stuff. Maybe I can go get rid of this one. Doesn't seem to do anything good. That one can go a little bit farther away and then go down. Maybe do something like that. Okay, let me grow branches again. And again, oh, branch reset will reset the branch, so it will grow from the start again. I don't want that. So let's see. So unless you want to regrow branches from the very beginning of the trunk, otherwise you don't want to click the reset here. So let me click and drag this one using move to, and then branch starts here. My new branches will be on this one now. So let's do grow branches again. You see now new branches are here. Okay. Drag it a little bit. Don't really need that one. That one can be more like this. The other one. Okay. So now I have the basic shape of my tray. I mean the basic branches. Of course, if you want to grow more, you can grow more, but I intend to make it simple, and I am actually going to rely more on textures on these smaller branches. But for now, I'm happy with the branches I'm having now. So then what I can do is go to the let's save it first. Tray branch created. Now what I can do is go to the group Z sphere. What it does, it will group this sphere based on their size. So that means smaller branches will be grouped underneath their own group. That way when you press Shift F, you will see now all the branches are now having their own groups. So smaller branches will be purple, and then the big chunks will be red, and then you have other ones like green or even orange ones. Okay, it's just easier to have those groups refined here first, created here first. Anyway, so now I'm happy with the shape and I have polygroups now, and I can go to adaptive skin here and then preview. So that's the skin I'm gonna get after that, after the Z sphere, and I don't want actually to be that dense, so I can drag down the density to go to subdivision level 1, and that's enough for me. Okay, so I can press make adaptive skin. If you go to sub 2 now and then do append, you can now see there's something called adaptive skin, skin underscore something. That's the new one I created as a geometry. Now you can hide the original Z-Sphere one and start working on the new one that is actually a geometry now. Alright. Now you can do sculpting with it now, like this, before we actually start sculpting more detail on the chunk, we can actually now start trying to give it smaller branches and leaves. Now, because we're doing this for game engine, so I'm just gonna do geometry. So let's open Maya. Oh, sorry. Let's just go online and search for some images. Let's try if we can go to CG textures. And then you should be able to find some nice texture, like leaf, or let's say branches. Okay, now it will give you a lot of branches with leaf on it. You can use those as texture. Okay. So let's see which one is good. I actually like this one. I think this one is really clean, and it does have all the texture and stuff on it, and even alpha. But I think I just need this one, so I'm gonna go download it. So log in. Oh. Forget my password. Okay. So now I can go download it. It looks like this. Now before I move on to use it as a texture, I also kind of want to make it more complex. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go to Photoshop and then open it. It's gonna be in my downloads, which is here. Okay, and what I can do now is copy this into a new file, which is a 1K file. I don't need the background, and I can actually make it more complex by populating using this simple image to create a even more complex branch shape. Make this one smaller on the edge. Doesn't have to be precise. No one is gonna care too much about how much you have with all the branches connected. So just feel free to combine them in any way you think is proper. I think you can flip this one. Even smaller. Okay, now I have a more complex branch. Let me maybe do one more in the middle to make it denser. Okay, now I'm happy with it, so let me go merge all the layers and then save it as a PNG because it does have transparency. So leaf texture, save it. Now let's go to Maya. Okay, and drag it here. Now what I can do is create a polyplane here and then give it just 2 segments, and then I can give it a new material and just use Lambert for now, and then you can give it the image. So it's gonna be my download. Okay, leaf image. Okay. If you press 6, you can now see they're all here. Let me just drag the vertices in the middle to give it some nice bending. Not too much. Maybe just twist it a little bit too, just to make it look complex. Okay, now let me rotate it this way and then drag it up and then duplicate it again and then rotate it like that. Maybe make this one smaller just to give it more variation. Maybe one more and position this one maybe here. Okay. So this is just smaller branches with leaves on it. I'm gonna use it for the tray later on. So let me grab everything and then combine them together. And then before I export, I also need to go to the UV editor and grab all the UVs and flip them this way. Okay, because ZBrush treated UVs in a flipped way for some weird reason, I don't know, but you just need to flip it to make it work properly in ZBrush. Now let's go export this as leaf. So let's just put everything into downloads. Leaf geo, then back to ZBrush, and then we can start with this cylinder and then import the mesh, the leaf geo we exported from Maya. Okay. Now to get the image back, you can go to the texture map and then go import texture. That's our texture. Okay. Now the transparency can be turned on by just dragging the transparent. Okay. Don't drag it too much. If you drag it too much, it's gonna eat out some of the non-transparent part. So just give it some value so you can see something. Okay, so that's the leaves. You can now see the back. To fix that, you can go to the display properties and turn on the double. That will allow you to see both sides. Right now we have the leaves. Let's try to apply it on the model. Drag, make the leaf facing up to you, and then go brush, create, insert mesh, and then new. And that way, when you go back to the tree, which is this one, and then grab the tree, and you can click and drag on the tree to start creating the leaf geometries. You can do that manually if you really want to control every individual leaf branches, but if you really want, if you're lazy and you don't want to do that, there's another way to do that, which is underneath the fiber mesh. You can do fiber mesh and then replace fiber mesh with the leaf geometry. So let's try to do that. So the place I want to grow leaf will be on, if you're holding down Control Shift and click on the main chunk, it's going to isolate it. Control Shift and click on it again to reverse the isolation. Now let's mask those on the top. Control Shift and drag. Oh, sorry, click to reveal everything, and then holding down Control and click to blur the mask a little bit. So that's where I want to grow my leaves. And then when that is done, just go to Fiber Mesh and preview. That will preview some Fiber Mesh on it, which is messy now. So I don't need that much. Let's change the max fibers to actually really low, like 0.1. And then you want to change the coverage to something really high, so you can see where they are. I think I can also drag down the by area to see them more. And then I can also go to the segments and give it just one segment. So I'm not relying on the Fiber Mesh to create leaves, but what I'm relying on is I need some randomly positioned geometry across the model, and I can later on replace those with my leaf geometry. So that's the idea here. So I don't really need that much. Gravity, you can drag the gravity down to make them go just straight. You can even drag it back to make them go up a little bit. Okay. And then their length doesn't really matter. Okay, so all that matters is how many they are and where they are. Okay, when you're happy with the distribution, you just go to the accept. What that does is give you a new subtool that has the Fiber Mesh on it. Okay, so to replace or to populate our leaf geometry on the Fiber Mesh, what you can do now, remember, have your insert mesh brush selected, which is the brush we created earlier using the geometry we created in Maya and imported into ZBrush. You can go to brush again and then create nano mesh brush. What that does is convert that insert mesh brush into a nano mesh. What nano mesh does is it can be populated on every individual face like that. So what you want to do now is hover your cursor on any of the faces on the Fiber Mesh, holding down space, and change that to all polygons as target. Now if you drag again, you will populate the leaf on all of the Fiber Meshes. Okay, so that way you'll have the leaf very quickly populated. You can of course go to the Nano Mesh panel and then do some changes like the size of the mesh, and then width and length. And variations. So you can do all kinds of stuff like offsets, rotation. Okay, so do anything you wanted to tweak. I think I could just gonna tweak the size variations. So with length variations, keep some variation on them so they're not the same size. All right. And then when I'm happy, you'll see that they're still nano mesh. They're not actual mesh. So if you go turn off nano mesh, they will just go away. So to convert those into actual geometry, you want to go to geometry and then convert BPR to geo. What that does is actually convert it into geometry now. You can now go back to nano mesh and turn it off. You see the geometry are still there. Now there's a little problem. Underneath the subtool, you see now the Fiber Mesh and the new mesh we created using Nano Mesh. They're underneath the same subtool. To separate those two things, you can hold it down Control Shift and click on the leaf meshes, and then go split hidden. That way you're splitting the Fiber Mesh from the newly populated leaf mesh. Now if you don't need that Fiber Mesh anymore, you can just delete it. Now we have the leaf mesh, and then you can go to the textures and apply the texture we applied earlier. No big deal. Okay, now we have a tree that does have trunk, leaf, and everything, which is almost ready to go. And the good thing about this workflow is that the geometry is very low. You see I have like only 20,000 geometries, which is pretty reasonable for a tree. And you see now they also include this one, which has 7,000 already. So if I don't have this rock, my geometry will only have like 10,000 triangles or points, which is actually pretty light. Anyway, so there is another problem when you're creating tree, which is UVs, right? UV is really tricky on this kind of stuff. But before I do that, I also wanted to simplify this model even more. Because if you look at the trunks here, you see now they have all those connections, but they're not really doing anything. So So you may want to get rid of those. To do that, you can go to the geometry and then go to edge loops. You can do the delete loops. If we do that, what it does is it can actually delete the unnecessary loops to make it even simpler. You can drag the angles lower. That will actually try to delete less. Okay, another thing you can do to give it smoother result is you can go to the deformation again, and then do the smooth to smooth the branches to make them more rounded. Okay. After that, if you think they're too small, you can also inflate it a little bit. So a lot of things you can do with the branches before we move on to UV. So now you see the total points are almost like half as much as before, and if we subtract the rock, which the active points now is only 2000, which is pretty amazing. Polygon wise, it's far more efficient than a game engine can handle. Alright. Now what you want to do now is do the UVs. Okay. So before you actually go to the UV plugin, you can also give it more polygroups. So let me go use my selection tool. Let's select the main trunk here. Just the middle one. No, actually just the middle one here. Oh, it's really hard to do. Let me add those and add those. Oh. Okay, so I want this to be one polygroup, so Ctrl W to do that. Now let's keep doing new polygroups, so maybe I can break this branch into multiple polygroups too. The reason I need to do that is because it's easier to do UV with enough polygroups to break up the branches. So I'm gonna polygroup that out. Okay, that's gonna be one group. Okay. Okay, another polygroup over here. Oh, maybe I can have the back covered more. Okay, I don't really care about that one. Alright, so maybe this one can also be one polygroup. Okay, and then that one can be one polygroup too. So just give them polygroups to make it easier to figure out a better UV. Alright. So I have enough polygroups now, and then what I can do for the UV is using the Z plugin again. Right above ZTree, there is a UV master. You want to go work on clone. That's a requirement. If you don't do that, you will have size issues. And then you want to use polygroup. You don't want symmetry because it's asymmetrical, and then unwrap. Okay, when that is done, you can go flatten and see how the UV looks like. Okay, it's pretty decent actually. I think for trade, this is as good as you can get. So let's unflatten and copy UVs and go back to the original one, which is, I think it's, which one is it? Maybe that one? Yeah, that's the one. Go back to the original model and paste the UV. Okay, that way you can go to the UV map and then morph the UV and to see how the UV looks like out of this tree. Now you have a tree trunk with proper UV, with leaf and proper UV and texture out there. So this workflow is pretty decent in its manner. Now let's move on to do some actual detail on the trunk, because right now they're just lines. You want some more detail actually. So let me Ctrl D to subdivide it a few times. And then what I can do now is start actually sculpting it to give it real detail. So this is just sculpting skill now. So there's really nothing particularly different here. I just need to give it some nice branches, nice lines and structures on it. So random structs would be nice. Give them like variation on volume and then some strokes to make them not as simple as before. Maybe some of the connections can be sharper. Oh, if you cannot change the material, that's because the polypen is on for some reason. Turn it off. Okay. So maybe here I can have a beautiful tree hole. All sorts of stuff you can do with the tree. It would be better to have a reference so you know how the shape looks like. I'm just purely rely on my imagination. So it may look a little bit cartoony, but anyway. I do like this workflow is because it's really easy to do. Doesn't take much time to figure out all those things, and then it gives you UV texture, all sorts of stuff you can do, and you can also controlling the branches in exactly the way you wanted them to be. So that's one of the plus. And yeah, so now I just give them some nice flowing texture along the main trunk to make it looks more like a tree instead of just cylinders connected together. All right. Okay. Now if I really want to have even smaller details, which takes forever to sculpt, maybe things like on the smaller branches, what you can do now is use some kind of texture as a displacement map. So let's search for bark. Okay, and then maybe you want to find someone fairly clean though. You don't want it to be destroying the shapes too much. Let's see. I'm not sure which one. Probably that one. Should give you a texture on it. Okay, this one. That's the displacement map. Let's go download it. Maybe the medium one. Okay. So this texture then can be used as a displacement map directly in ZBrush. So let's go to the texture map and then create a new texture. You have to have a texture to be able to use the displacement map underneath it. So now let's go to displacement map and go to the little icon here and then import the map, which is which one is it? This one. Medium size. Open it. Okay. Now you also want to have the mode on. That will actually make it visible to you. It does nothing yet. That's because you don't have intensity at all. So you want to give it some intensity. Let's try 1. You see it's displacing the geometry dramatically. So 1 is probably not a good idea. So let's change that to 0.1. Okay. And maybe I think 0.1 is good. Oh wait, no, not good. So 0.05 maybe, to give it some variations. I think the texture needs to be rotated because their direction is kind of wrong. Let's see, maybe go to UV map and then adjust. And we cannot do that here. Flip it. Okay, doesn't do much thing actually. So let's go back to the displacement map. Let's just make it stronger. Maybe choose a different displacement map. Maybe with more detail though. So let's try 0.2. Just make it stronger here. I can smooth it later. You know what? I don't really like the texture here. Let's go change that to something else. You can always experiment with it. So that's not good. Something else. Maybe not a directional one. Maybe just a bumpy one, like that. Okay, let's try that. Okay, this feels a bit better, so maybe 0.1 instead. Okay, and then let's apply the displacement map. Okay, and it will apply it on it. It will feel a little bit blurry, but I think it's quite nice now without the little bumpiness on it, so it doesn't feel like just a very bare 3D 3D model now. Okay. So let's turn that off, and then let's see which kind of view the quick 3D mode is off. Let's see. Let's see which one is it. Kinda forget that. It's up to. I think maybe that's underneath. Yes, here I want to turn the quick 3D edit on again. Okay, now let's smooth it a little bit on those parts, or if you want to, I think it's a detail that strong would be actually good, because if you bake a normal map on it, it's actually weaker in Game Engine. But if you want to smooth it, you can also go to deformation and then drag the smooth up a little bit to actually smooth its entire model. Okay. And some little fixing on the seam, which shouldn't be such a big deal, but you know, some stroke on it to fix it. Should be easy to do. Alright, so now I have a tree bark that has a lot of detail on it, even though they're not, you know, sculpted by myself, but I think they're decent enough to work on. Okay, now it's time to really bring it to Game Engine. Okay, now let's go down to subdivision level 1, and remember that we have UV already, so we can go bake the map by going to the multi-map exporter here, and then check on normal map, and the map size you can choose 4K or 2K. Let's do 2K now because you don't want it to be too much. And then underneath the export options, go to normal map, and then you want to have tangent, adaptive, and as normal, smooth normal on. Okay, and then create all maps. All right. Tree normal. AO and stuff, you can do that too if you want it, but it just takes forever to bake AO in ZBrush, so I'm gonna skip that. But it's actually very easy. Just check that on and then create all map that will create the AO. So now I have the normal map out. I have the trunk now. All I have to do is export it. So let's go export. Before you export, make sure you don't have any polygroup checked on underneath export, and then export, otherwise the polygroup will be created into separate geometries, which is not good. So tree body, that's my tree body, right? And then you can go to the leaves and then export this one. Let's call it tree leaves. Now go back to Maya. I don't need to see this one anymore. Let's go file, import, and let's import the tree body. Oh, sorry, tree body, which is this one. And then also import the tree leaves. Now I have everything here. Let me give the trunk a new material and call it a lumber material, and then let's call it trunk material, and then load the texture for it, load the normal map for it, which is bump map, and then file, tangent space normal, and then the normal map will be this one. Okay, it will not show properly in Maya because the viewport 2.0 is not good at it. The leaves, let's also just give it a new material instead of using the ones ZBrush gave us. So another Lambert will be good, and then go color, file, and then load the leaf texture, which is this one. Okay. Another thing is the tree is actually flipped, so you want to let me group them together and then rotate it back 180 degrees should be good. Okay, so now let's combine them together and then export this. Let's call it, oh, let's not combine them, let's just keep them separated, because that way you can manipulate them in Game Engine. So let's just call it tree. Okay, select the tree, and then let's go file, send to Unity. Okay, let me open Unity. Let's just create a new project. Okay, now I have Unity opened. So let's copy the project folder. Okay, go back to Maya, and then send to Unity, and then set Unity project first. Okay, and then file, send to Unity. So let's do selection. Tree. Okay, you want to have smoothing group there, and then triangulate is okay, just export selection, and then if you go back to, oh, just making sure everything is good. You want to also underneath the include, and then there is something called embedded media. Check that on. Okay, I already have that on, so it should be okay. Now if you go back to Unity, Unity will actually start importing that. It will also ask you, do you want to convert the normal map into normal map? Yes, I want to do that, so just fix now. Okay, now my tree is in, drag it there. Okay, now you see the transparency there is all wrong. You can go select the material here and change that from change the render mode to fade. That will make it go transparent. Okay, and that's about the leaf. The trunk, I think the normal is already, yeah, it's already attached, just not read it earlier. See, now the normal map is actually weaker. You see why I think it would be better to actually have the normal map really strong in ZBrush, and that will give you a proper, let me make it bigger. The size is not actually good. But you see, it's actually really good for Game Engine because it's really light, doesn't have much geometry, but it does have a lot of detail already. So yeah, that's the tree workflow I want to show you using the tools we have. You should be able to do the same thing in Unreal Engine, but I think it's almost the same as this one, so I don't think you need to. I need to show that. But there's a little problem here though. If you look at the leaves, they're casting shadows in a very let me give it some color. In a very flat way. So the shadow from the leaves, you can still feel they're flat. Okay, so if you wanted to change that, you can actually bake the normal or bend the normal of individual vertex to make them giving you a smoother shading. To do that, you can go back to Maya and grab the leaves. You can create a new sphere here and then drag the sphere and make it cover the leaf. Okay. And modify, freeze transformation, center pivot, delay history, grab the sphere and then the leaves. Oh, before I do that, let's go grab all the vertices, holding down shift and right mouse button. You can go vertex normal and then toggle the vertex normal. So you can see the normal are all going their own directions. Okay, but now if you select the sphere and then the tree leaf and do mesh transfer attribute, and then you just transfer the vertex normal and nothing else, just the vertex normal, and then use the workspace and apply. See, now the normal are all going uniform directions. One of the problem is the normal is going like inwards. You can try to drag the sphere because they are still connected. Oh, actually not. Maybe I deleted the history too soon. Okay, but anyway, let's try to flip the normal of the sphere and then apply the map again. That will make them go outwards. Okay, now you see the normal of the vertex are all going a more uniform direction, so you'll get a much smoother shading. So let's grab the geometry and delay history and delete the sphere. We don't need that anymore. And then let's export the tree again. Replace the original one and go back to Unity. See, now the normal map of the leaf are all the normal of the vertex are rebaked, so they looks better. But a much detailed way of doing that would be you actually try to go to individual small chunks like that one and that one, and give them individual normals, bake them different separately, because what I'm baking now is just what I'm transferring now is from the sphere to those ones, right? So there still looks like a little bit too uniform here. Maybe you want that one to have one sphere to bake, another one and another portion. So it can get detailed if you really wanted to give them better normal direction. But for now, I think all I'm trying to teach you now is the technique. Okay. So the tree is here. You can use it anywhere you want. It will not have any performance issue because it's pretty light, and it does have, I think the only thing is missing now is the texture, which should be very easy to do. You can bring it to a substance spinner or anything else or just throw a texture on it. But anyway, this is the workflow of creating trees. I hope you enjoyed it. Alright, see you guys next time.